Our beloved Anطونيوس was a priest with a deep, deep love for the church and a respect for the priesthood that saw the role of the priest as being the servant who served everyone in that church. That was sourced from a deep love of God, and together, that love of God and that love of the church made an incredible deep love for each person in the church, each son and daughter of the church. I can't stand here and tell you that. You know that. Each one of you has experienced that love. Each one of you has experienced that love of God, that love of church, and that love of us. We experienced it because we saw it in his life. He evidenced it in his life. Everyone said that already today, but you know it and I know it. There are so many examples of how Abuna evidenced that love of God, that love of church, and that love of us. There are so many examples that we don't have time to go through them, but if you allow me, I'm just going to share three, or highlight three. The first was Abuna's sermons. For those brothers and sisters who maybe weren't sharing in St. Mark's services a few years ago, you may not appreciate what we say when we say Abuna's powerful sermons. Abuna's sermons were so strong, so life-changing. It felt that someone was holding you by your shoulders and shaking you. In fact, it felt like somebody was shaking the whole church. That came from Abuna's desire to send a message to his children. And there were so many messages, so many sermons that he shared, but the one that is imprinted in my memory, and has been already mentioned already today, is to be ready for the day of salvation, to be ready for your judgment. It came from his own desire to see his children united with God. Over time, that deep love that Abuna had somehow seemed to get deeper. But it also migrated from the vigorous passion of a younger man to the wiser, gentle love of an older man. And his sermons seemed to migrate to much more focusing on living with God and love of God in your life. Each one a reflection of who he was in his life. The second evidence I wanted to highlight of Abuna's love and powerful love, passionate love of God, the church, and each one of us was his liturgy. Abuna loved the liturgy, we know that. He would love the communion. The amounts of time he would tell each one of us as servants, make sure the children have communion. Why? Because he believed in the transformational power of the Holy Communion. And in his liturgy, even his hymnology, there were so many gives, so many tells of that belief. I have so many examples to share, but I don't have the time. Someone grabbed me afterwards, and I want to share all of the examples of his hymnology, of the things he used to focus on, and I'll just share one. One was his famous fraction for the Son. That fraction that talks about the love of our Lord Jesus Christ in sacrificing and suffering for all of us. The words of that fraction say, we are the ones who sinned, and he is the one who suffered. And the pinnacle of it is when Abuna used to cry out with a loud voice, O blood of Christ, Ya dam al-Masih, purify me from my sins. O Jesus, my beloved, Ya Yasur Habibi, soften me with the oil of your grace and confirm me as a living branch. So powerful, so beautiful. But not once in all the years did Abuna ever complete that fraction without breaking down. I often had the blessings to be praying in the sanctuary when he was praying that fraction. And it's shocking to see such a strong man in pieces, in tears. Why? Just reliving the suffering of our Lord Jesus Christ. sourced from the deep love that he has for our Lord Jesus Christ. The third evidence of the passionate love of Abuna for God, for the church, and for each one of us was his fatherhood. Abuna would gather the servants with Dr. Shelgaris, the leader of the Sunday school servants, and he would tell each one of us strongly, work with the children, bring them to the church, and take them to God. Give them communion, take them to communion. And he was really, really struggling in the times of COVID. Why? Because he wanted the children to go to church, to take communion, to be that, but he knew they couldn't. And therefore he would tell the servants, do what you can. As a father, he cared so much. Do what you can to support the kids where they are. So much so that the first year after lockdown, we had a conference in Reading. And by this time, Abuna had already handed over the service to Abuna Anthony. But he still came. You know, Abuna is in his 80s at this point in time. He's still in his 80s, and he came to the conference. And I have a lasting image in my mind of Otsabuna, Antonis, together with Tasoni Amal, in the middle of the conference. Around them, so many children who, of course, are engaged in workshops and talks and hymnology. And Abuna is sitting there, beaming with a smile from ear to ear. Abuna, you know, Abuna's lovely smile that he had. He was beaming from ear to ear with a joy that came from within him. Why? Because his children were around him. And his children were engaged with God. He was a proud father. This is the effect that Abuna had in all of our lives. A profound effect in our lives. In that he was our father who passionately loved God, passionately loved the church, and passionately loved us. And is now in the loving embrace of his Father in heaven, together with the other founding fathers of this church, Abuna Bishoy, Bushra, and Abuna Antonis Farag, together with the other giants of the church, like him, that he grew up with in Alexandria, together with his beloved and our beloved Mary. And he leaves behind a massive space, but as already mentioned today, he leaves behind a permanent legacy. That permanent legacy is foundations of churches across Europe. It is this church, St. Mark's. It is the church in the hands of faithful priests. It is ministry that he faithfully served, Sunday schools and youth services and ritual services and many meetings that he faithfully served. But above all, it's each one of us. It's each one of us, his sons and daughters, that all aspire to have his love of God, his love of church, and his love of each other. I cannot emphasize enough the effect of the legacy of Abuna Antoниus. It's no less important than the mortar of the bricks that hold this church together. We love you, Abuna Antoниus, and we ask for your prayers for your church, for your services, and for your children. Glory be to God.